Hello everyone, welcome back to a brand new video, and today we are going to be looking at the 2021 New Mexico 1st Congressional District special election, and who I think is going to win by how much, as well as what it means for the 2022 midterms and future elections. So, taking a look at the November 2020 election and some background on the race. So Deb Haaland was the Democratic incumbent. She won by 16.4%. There were no third parties in the race, just a straight, D versus R race. And this is a district that is considered to be likely deep. She did run behind Biden in the district. This was a 23-point Biden district. She won it by 16.5. So she was, I guess, not a great incumbent, but she was still pretty strong in a district that has a Democratic lean. Like this district, it's expected that she was going to win by a pretty good margin. So the reason that we're having a special election is because Deb Haaland is now in the Biden cabinet, and she is actually the first Native American to serve in a president's cabinet. So that's pretty interesting. So we're now having a special election, and essentially the two candidates we have Marie Stansbury as well as Mark Morris. I don't know why I forgot his name. I literally had to pull up the Wikipedia page. It also appears that I called Melanie Stansbury Michelle Stansbury. So it's Melanie Stansbury versus Mark Morris. There also is an independent, and I believe there's a libertarian running in the there's a libertarian as well, Chris Manning. So yeah, now to take a look at the only poll we've really had in this race recently. This was a poll conducted by RRH Elections. A pretty bad poll in my opinion. This is actually a right-leaning pollster. I don't really think it's a great pollster, but it's kind of the only. But it's kind of what we're stuck with here for only you wouldn't see this poll for a huge presidential election poll in Pennsylvania. You'd only see it for a special election, a seat that's not going to be too competitive. But Stansbury does have a 16% lead in this poll, but what I think people are talking about is the fact that she didn't hit 50% in the poll, which I think is expected when you have a special election that only people who are terminally online who spend their days on Twitter know about. You're going to have a lot of undecided voters. So this poll is exactly what I thought it was going to be. The crosstabs are interesting. There were a couple minor things. I don't want to look into it too much because I think that we'd be overanalyzing this race if we even open the link to the poll. But essentially what you see is that Stansbury has a 16% lead, which I expected. I remember seeing last month back in April, or I think in the beginning of May, there was this expectation from Republicans on Twitter that this race was somehow going to be competitive, that they were going to lose it by 5%, that this would be down to the wire, when in reality, this is a race that the Democratic Party won by 16% in 2020. Joe Biden won it by 23% in 2020, and the only poll we have puts them ahead by basically the same margin. And I think that they're actually going to win this race by more than people think. The consensus that we have is that this race is on the higher end of likely deep, and that they're going to win this by in between 10 to 12%. I think they're going to win it by around 14 or 15, maybe 16. I don't think the undecideds are going to break for more, especially because my best guess is that undecided voters are predominantly Hispanic voters who weren't really focused on the election, who might not even vote. And again, these are only likely voters, so some of these people might not even vote. So we're going to have to see how they break. But I do think that that they wouldn't really break for anyone. But if they did, they go for the Democrats. Maybe we see, we have what this adds up to. Between the two candidates, this is 82% plus 8, which is around 90%. The 10%, it could break 6-4 or 6-3 for the Democrat, which would be my best guess. So I think the Democrat, if you came here for a margin prediction, I do think that the Democratic Party is going to win this race by around 14%. I'm going to go with 54 to 40%, and then I believe the Independent's going to get 4, and the Libertarian's going to get 2. So, yeah, now taking a look at this poll that actually did have open, I know that I did say I did say that we shouldn't analyze the poll too much, but I'm actually going to pull it up right now. Biden holds a similar approval rating. And just to take a look at this, you can see that 70% of these voters have already voted. So in this poll of these voters, if the Democrats winning these voters by 16 and 7 out of 10 of them have already voted, that's not a good sign for the Republican Party. And it's kind of reminding me of the Georgia runoffs where we saw, I retweeted this back. It was it was around New Year's, a couple days before the runoff. There was a poll that came out that had the Democratic Party winning the runoffs by I think 5% or something. But the really weird thing on that poll was that like 8 or 9 out of every 10 voters had already voted, and the Democrats were winning. And I remember seeing, I saw Evan Scrimshaw retweet it. For those who don't know, he's a prominent member of election Twitter who he used explosive dialogue, so I didn't retweet him. I retweeted the poll of my own because, keep it kid friendly. But basically, he was, and I agreed with him. If that was the case, if that ended up not being the case, the Democrats still won, but it was closer than the poll had it. If that poll was right, that 9 out of every 10 voters had already voted, the GOP would have lost that runoff by double digits. It would have been a disaster. It would have been, the runoffs were pretty bad for them. It would have been an atrocity. It would have been the worst special election performance that we've seen possibly ever from this party. So, yeah. Now, we kind of see a similar thing here where 7 out of every 10 voters have already voted, but the difference is that this is a House seat that's not going to determine the balance of a House of Congress the way that those runoffs did, and it's in a seat that's not going to be too competitive when things are all said and done. Now, I guarantee that people on Twitter are going to overanalyze this race and say, well, the Democrat outperformed in this county, this county, this county. It doesn't matter. In my opinion, as long as the Democrats win this race by more than 10 or 11%, this is going to be a pretty solid victory. Now, if we see the Democrat only wins this by 4, I'm going to be, whoa, the Democrats have a 2022 problem. And even then, I think it's stretching it a little bit, because I do believe that special elections are going to have a Republican tilt at this point in time, mostly because people don't know enough about the Republican candidate to judge him as Trumpian or more establishmentarian. The way that in 2022, they're going to be talking with Senate candidates, and Donald Trump's going to be, attacking them the way he already has with, in Arizona, he's attacking the front runner for the Republican Senate race, Mark Brnovich, for not challenging the results of the 2020 election when he was Secretary of State, or I think Attorney General. I'm not sure. I always get those two positions mixed up. Mark Morris has the luxury, similar to Susan Wright at the beginning of the month when she won her race, or is going to the runoff in her race. He has the advantage of not being well known by the base, and as long as they turn out to vote, they're going to vote for him no matter if they're an establishment Republican, voted for Biden, or a Trump Republican. So that's what really matters in this race. Now, just to take a look at the county-by-county prediction, the majority of these voters are from Bernalillo County, which is where Albuquerque is, of course, Albuquerque being the largest city in New Mexico. And, being realistic here, unless the Republican Party can make this county less than 15%, which I don't think they're going to, the turnout could be lower, but they're not going to make it below 15%. This race should be safety. We have a couple of voters from Sandoval County, but, that's Deb Hall only got 7,000 votes, as well as the Republican part of this district, which only has like a couple thousand voters. Torrance County, which the Republican won with 5,000 voters. So it's mostly Bernalillo County. It's where these people are. It's where the voters are coming from, which is a Democratic-leaning county. So what I think we should take away from this race is don't overanalyze it too much. First of all, that's the most important thing. If it gets really close, I could make a video but talking about how this is a red flag for Democrats potentially. I'll have to see how it turns out. But like I said, the Republicans would have an unfair advantage in this race for a couple of reasons. But I think with that being said, I'm going to say my final prediction. And by the way, I'm just going to feature a few people here on my final prediction for New Mexico's first congressional district. It would be around D plus 14 or 15, like I said at the beginning of the video. Now, taking a look at some other people's predictions, which I did say I'll feature your replies in the next video. Political predictions and analysis says D plus 18. Early vote numbers are very strong for Dems in this district, which I agree with him on that. He also says to check my DMs. Okay, I'm going to have to do that in a second. I'm really bad about checking my DMs. Tammy Baldwin fan says Stansbury plus 15. Netflix and Xochitl, that's a very cool name, or Xochitl, has Stansbury up by 13. And Obama Tredobin, has a D plus 14, 18 margin. I think that's a pretty solid prediction. I'm going to give that a like. Oops. And then D plus 16, Stansbury will do better with Latinos than Biden. I agree with that. I think that Biden was a pretty more pro candidate for Latinos, as we know, but I don't think that she will do as good in the Albuquerque suburbs. Yeah, I agree with that. So I think we're going to see a similar margin to what Deb Haaland did. D plus 14 for Aiden. I'm not going to read his name, but I did reply that this is a solid prediction. D plus 14, minor reversion of whites, but non-consequential anyways to them. But Ds keep up momentum, and low propensity Rs don't care as much as your average D. I think that's a very good analysis, and I think that we have similar margins, so I think that we're kind of on the same page about this. Train says D equals 15. Politics Made Simple says D equals 12 to 14. And Chad Robinette wants Ohio abolished, says D plus 15%. So that's going to be it for this video, guys. I hope you enjoyed, and if you found it informative, please do leave a like. If you live in the district, please go ahead and vote if you haven't voted already. Now, if you're underage or you don't live in the district, I'd rather you not vote because I don't want to get you in trouble. But with that being said, thanks for watching. I'll see you all in the next video.